Emily Hart was the kind of girl most people didn't notice. She walked the school hallways like a shadow, her books clutched to her chest, her long dark hair often hiding her face and her head always lowered, not because she was weak but because she was exhausted from pretending she didn't hear the whispers, the laughter, the insults thrown her way. For years she had endured the same routine. At home, her father, a retired military veteran, trained her relentlessly, not because he wanted her to fight, but because he feared a day would come when she might need to. Emily never wanted violence. She just wanted peace. But peace was impossible in the halls of Ridgeway High. There was always someone eager to provoke the quiet ones, and for Emily, that someone had a name everyone knew: Brandon Keller. Brandon was the classic school bully wrapped in arrogance and cruelty. The kind of boy who thought his father's money and his football trophies gave him the right to treat others like stepping stones beneath his designer sneakers. His gang laughed when he pointed, sneered when he insulted, and cheered when he struck. Emily was his favorite target because she never responded, never fought back, never showed fear, at least not the kind he could see. One rainy Monday morning, as students rushed between classes, Brandon saw Emily walking alone as usual. He called out to her, something cruel, something about her clothes, something about how she had no friends, no life, no purpose. The hallway seemed to narrow, the walls pressing in, students slowing to watch, some smirking, others indifferent. Emily kept walking. That infuriated him. He strode up, faster than usual, stepping into her path, knocking her books from her hands. Papers scattered across the filthy floor. "Look at me when I'm talking to you, freak," Brandon spat. Emily bent down, gathering her things silently. Brandon slapped the stack of papers from her grip again. Laughter erupted. A teacher's voice barked in the distance, but not fast enough. Brandon leaned in, hissed something awful about her family, about her father, words meant to wound, words meant to push. His hand came up fast, a sharp, loud slap across her face in front of everyone. The hallway fell silent. For a heartbeat, time froze. Emily straightened slowly, her hair falling away from her eyes, her breathing calm, too calm. In that stillness, something inside her broke. But it wasn't her spirit. It was the invisible leash she'd kept wrapped around her true self for too long. Brandon sneered, ready to gloat. Emily's hand shot out. In one fluid, terrifyingly precise movement, she gripped his wrist, twisted, stepped in, and before anyone could blink, a sickening crack echoed through the hallway. Brandon's scream shattered the stunned silence as he crumpled to his knees, clutching his grotesquely bent elbow. Students gasped, some stepped back in fear, others in awe. Emily stood above him, her eyes cold, steady. "Don't touch me again," she said quietly. Teachers finally arrived, chaos in their wake. Paramedics, principal, police. Questions, shock, fear. Emily said nothing more. Not then, not yet. Because this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of the story no one expected from the quiet girl in the hallway. Two-chapter twinly behind her silence was fire. The rumors spread like wildfire. By the next day, every student at Ridgeway High knew the story, though each version twisted slightly with every telling. Some said Emily broke Brandon's arm in 3 places. Others said she was secretly trained by assassins, or that she'd once fought off 3 muggers downtown. None of it was true. And yet none of it was entirely false either. Emily returned to school with her usual silence, but the way people looked at her had changed. Fear mixed with curiosity now shadowed every glance. The teachers watched her like a ticking bomb. Brandon's friends avoided her like smoke avoiding fire. Even the principal handled her disciplinary meeting with careful words and hesitant eyes. Suspension was inevitable, but Emily didn't care. She walked home the long way, through the park where her father waited on a bench beneath an old oak tree. He didn't need to ask. She sat beside him, quiet. "I told you," he said after a while. "Someday someone would push too far." Emily nodded. He did. Her father's hand rested on hers, a silent affirmation. "I didn't want this," she whispered. "I just wanted them to leave me alone." Sometimes, Emily, silence isn't strength. Sometimes, you have to show them what strength really looks like. The next weeks changed everything. Brandon's elbow would heal, but his reputation wouldn't. Bullies rely on fear. Emily had taken that from him. Word spread beyond school, to parents, to teachers, even to news outlets hungry for viral stories of bullied girls standing up. They painted her as a victim-turned-hero, though Emily felt neither. What she felt was free, finally free from pretending weakness to avoid conflict. Yet freedom came with shadows, anonymous threats online, Whispered warnings. A group of older boys, friends of Brandon's older brother, waited for her after school one gray afternoon. They blocked her path, their faces smug, sure they could do what Brandon couldn't. Emily didn't run. She remembered her father's training, balance, speed, precision, not anger, not chaos, just control. 3 against 1. They didn't last long. A knee to the gut, an elbow to the jaw, a twist that sent another sprawling. By the time the last boy staggered to his feet, he chose to run. Emily watched him go, her breath steady despite the blood trickling from her lip. A teacher had seen everything. Police were called again. This time, though, things unfolded differently. No charges. Witnesses told the truth. Self-defense. The principal called her in again, this time with less scolding and more curiosity. "What are you?" he asked, not unkindly. "Someone who's tired of being afraid," Emily answered. Her father was called in, and when he left that office, he left with Emily enrolled in a different program, self-defense, martial arts competitions, a mentorship to turn her strength into something more than reactionary violence. Emily stood in that new world like she'd stood in the hallway, quiet, observant, unshaken, and slowly others like her began to notice. Quiet girls who'd been targets, boys who hid bruises beneath sleeves, students who thought strength only belonged to the loud, the cruel. Emily taught them otherwise, not through words but through presence, through action, through resilience that didn't need applause. Months later, at a tournament, she stood beneath bright lights, her opponent twice her size, his sneer familiar. She smiled, not cruelly but calmly. The bell rang. Emily moved. Quick, precise, controlled. Victory wasn't in breaking bones but in proving no one could break her again. When the match ended, the crowd cheered not just for the winner, but for what she represented. Back at Ridgeway, no one slapped her books again. No one whispered. No one dared. Because the quiet girl had shown them all that silence can hide a storm, and storms cannot be controlled.